In this section, we're going to be working with particle effects. We're going to start to bring this level to life, give it some real atmosphere. So at the moment, although it's dark, it looks like nighttime. We've put in the lights and they look interesting. It needs something more. It needs to be evocative as a horror game. Okay, so under the standard assets folder, which is just simply located in your assets, we're going to double click on that and we have effects. So we're going to double click on this. Oh no, sorry, not effects, it's the particle systems, and we've got prefabs and we have a dust storm. Now what we're going to do with the dust storm is we're actually going to create kind of a fog that's going to pervade this entire scene. Now at the moment it is very much a dust storm, so we need to kind of modify this. So what we're going to do is just drag this roughly in front of this house here. Okay, so we're going to put that in and you can kind of see it simulating there. So as we come down, we can see that we've got very much this dust storm in front of this house. Okay. So what we need to do now is basically modify this. At any point that you want that simulation to stop, just click stop. Okay. Just going to drag this out. So as long as we have dust storm selected, we'll get this sort of dialogue. I'm going to drag this down a bit so that we can see the options. The first thing, the dust storm is kind of it's restricted to this area just in front of this house. I actually want it to cover pretty much the entire map. Okay, so I need to go down to shape. Okay, and where it says scale, it's currently on 100, so I'm going to change this to 1000. So 0 on there and 0 on there. Okay, and I'm pretty much now getting the fog all over the map. Bear in mind, I can't get beyond these red barriers, so it doesn't have to go beyond this water layer. It just needs to extend to the edge of the barriers, which it is doing now. Okay, so at the moment we've extended the scale, but if I now simulate, you'll see we only get small particles and they're so far apart, so we still need a lot to do on this to make it look effective. Alright, so I'm going to start at the top. So the duration, I'm actually going to change it from 5 to actually 500, ensuring that it actually simulates continuously for a very, very long time. Looping, ensure that that is checked, that's very important. Okay, start lifetime. Instead of it being 5, because obviously it will simulate quite quickly, I want to slow this down. I'm going to change this to 1. Okay, so start lifetime is 1. Start speed is good. Start size, we need to change the size because obviously we saw that they were so far apart because they're very small. So we're going to extend this to the first one to 60 and the second one to 150. Now when I play, we can see that those particles are much bigger. They're still very, very fast at the moment. Okay, so where it says simulation speed, it's currently on 1, which is why it's so fast. So we're going to slow this all the way down to 0.1. Now when I play, you'll see that we get this very, very slow effect. Okay, particles, they actually build up over time and they persist for quite a long time. Okay, the rest of that is pretty good, except for this one, the maximum particles. At the moment it can only generate 1000 particles. We need a lot more than that. So I'm actually just going to put one more 0 on the end. So now it can generate up to 10,000 particles. Okay, so we should see a lot more coverage now. Under the emission, the rate over time, it's currently saying 100, so we're actually going to change that to 10,000. Okay, so now when we play, we get a lot more, and you see how much that covers it almost straight away, and now it's pervasive. Okay, so it's pretty much clothed in this fog now. It is still too intense at the moment, so if I were to click on the game, you can see that that fog is far too intense at the moment. So we're going to sort that out in a second. So we need to come down to its shader. The rest of this is actually good. Okay, So we're going to come down to where we've got the actual shader itself. Now it's currently on a legacy shader, which basically means it was useful for like Unity 4, and I think it was also Unity 5 as well, possibly. I know it certainly changed PBR shaders somewhere in Unity 5, somewhere along the way. So we don't want to use the old legacy shader for this. Instead, we want to use the newer PBR shaders. And we have particles right here. And we're going to change this to Priority Alpha Blended. Okay, and now when we take a look at our game, oh, sorry, I'm not simulating, so let me just simulate. Now when we look at our game, we get a much better effect. Okay. Great. So what we're going to do is click on this tint color, and I'm actually just going to change the color slightly. I'm going to type in an hexadecimal code. This one's going to be all capitals CFA678. Okay, and we get this sort of brownish orangish type color, and we're going to change the alpha. We're going to really lower this. We're going to change it down to 7. Okay, so it's barely noticeable now. Great, and let's simulate this. And as you can see, it's not as intense. When we check it to the game, now we've got something that really does look like fog. Okay, and it's going to lend itself to that horror feel. Okay, so we've now got an interesting fog. Bear in mind, because this is alpha blended, what it means, it's going to lighten some parts of the scene up a little bit, so we may have to do a little bit of work and darkening it back down again. Okay, so I'm just simulating this at the moment, and as you can see, the fog makes a very big difference to the look of the game. So now it sort of looks genuinely creepy, I think. The further it gets away, it's becoming lighter, basically, as we can see over there. But it is making it look like a completed game, like a AAA game. However, it's a little bit too bright at the moment for my liking. If you like this effect, obviously you can go with this. You can experiment with different alpha blends on the shader for the particles. You can even change the color of those if you want. But what we're going to be doing in the next video is changing the exposure on the post-processing profile, just to basically darken this down a little bit. And I want to make sure that these colors are still visible, particularly from a distance. The fog can quite often dissipate the colors to the point where they're not that visible. Okay, I noticed that the pink there is in this building is standing out quite a bit, so that's quite good, and it definitely softens that color.